up with that Varnam. That Varnam is amazing. The composition, can I just, 2 words of just like fanfare a little bit? So Rajan sir, when you play the flute, you have this incredibly rounded sound. My understanding is that some of that comes from the fact that you actually don't use the traditional instrument, correct? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So, in Carnatic music, South Indian classical music, normally we use the small flute. It is very string, shorn, high pitch, and somehow I don't like it. Especially for dance, it doesn't bring the emotion. And so I started using bansuri, like the North Indian classical flute, but then the entire finger system is different. So I had to do a lot of modification to my flute.
Oh wow!
And that's how I started playing.
So for those of you who don't know, the Carnatic flute is very different than the Hindustani bansuri, and so I didn't know this, but apparently 2 systems of learning between the 2 to begin with. I would have assumed the notation was the same on the flute.
No, it's the same, but the fingering systems are different. You know, for the sa, in Carnatic music they close the 2 first fingers, that becomes sa. In Hindustani it becomes only the 3.
So one day you just picked up the Hindustani flute and was like, I'm going to switch the entire system I know onto this.
But I have my own fingering system.
And then Nadhi, you could see that you were playing with the musicians a lot. Actually, I think that was one of the most beautiful aspects about it, was what you were kind of, there was an interaction that was going on that added to the whole thing, and it wasn't this like rigid sensibility to it. Can you speak a little bit about that? I think that also talks to a little bit about your relationship.
I mean, it's like 2 things. Like for me personally, and the way I've been learning from my teacher in Chennai, he's like, don't memorize your hands. Like you should know the content, you should know your story, your character, and which works because I'm really bad at memorizing things. So and so it's become this sort of way of every time I do it, it is different. And actually, I'm sorry. How many times? I don't know how many times I'm doing this today. But like, luckily, when you have a really creative team who's willing to try things and willing to let things sound differently every day, and it makes it really fun. Like yesterday was a totally different piece that we did, I think. And
actually, that gives the artist the real artistic satisfaction and the excitement. Otherwise, what's happening now is not a complaint, but generally. Even the sancharis, the improvisation part in dance, it's all fixed. 2 times this, 3 times this guy and the guy and the guy. So there's no fun in that. So everybody knows what's going to happen. So with Nadhi, that's the one thing. She just goes and we just go with her. And it's real challenge.
Sometimes it works.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're like, oh, it didn't come out the way I thought. But that's okay. And I think that's, even going to a lot of music concerts, it's kind of like that. Sometimes musicians are like, ooh, I didn't land that, but let's try it again and let's see what magical thing can come out of this today. And I find that to be so much more exciting watching music concerts than someone who's trained, who's like a younger musician who's maybe like memorized all their swarams and just giving a beautiful concert, but there's like less surprise and magic.
So surprise is what we get with Rajan sir.
Yeah.
I think that's actually, I've seen both of you separately at different times, and every time I would say that is something I get to see from these 2 artists in separate spaces as well.